We are doing Cornell notes over inspiration is overrated. As a refresher, I'm going to change the size of this. First, large. Okay. So I first need to lay out my text. So again, you want to give yourself enough spacing throughout. So this is kind of the layout that you want. We're going to do our EQ first. Okay. EQ is now which, so it's going to be which inventions described in this unit has had the biggest impact on humanity. So which inventions described in this unit has had the biggest impact on humanity. Okay, I wrote that kind of large, so of course that's going to take up more space. Then for our text, we want to put our author and page number so that we know what our in-text citation is going to be at this title piece. So again, that would be the author page number, but we don't have an author for this. So our title is going to go where the author's name would go. Inspiration is overrated. And this is page 442 to 443. Okay. And then next, I'm going to kind of lay out where each section goes. So my questions go here. My keywords down here. Connection to the prompt. Is going to go here. And we've got and then I'm going to have my quote here, which is evidence from the text. And then I'm going to give myself about 5 spaces underneath this. And I'm going to do paraphrase here. And I really only need about 5 more spaces underneath this. So this is also evidence from the text. Okay, so now I'm going to put my additional notes here. So just to clarify, from here to here, you need 5 spaces at least. Okay, if not more. So additional notes, and then how does this change or add to my thinking? Okay, and the last piece, we are going to have our summary. Okay, so for our questions to the left, you're gonna be asking about 4 questions. I'm gonna go over this a little bit, but I'm gonna start filling in parts of the Cornell notes that I think are gonna help you get into the mindset you need to be able to complete the rest of this. So last unit, we really focused on what Cornell notes are and just kind of overview of the gist. Now this unit, we're going to be really focusing on making sure that our Cornell notes are accurate and incredibly useful. So what this means is I'm going to provide you some sentence components to this that you are going to need to include in your own Cornell notes. So we can ask for questions. What questions can we ask to fill this in? And when I'm talking about fill this in, I'm talking about the whole Cornell note. So 1, and I'm going to give myself about 3 spaces per question. And then, okay, so I'm going to ask 1, 2 questions to kind of help you get started, and then you can fill in the rest. We're going to go over as a class other questions that you can put here. But so my example questions are for your Cornell note. On each Cornell note, you should have, oh wait, this should be another, the green. And green, I'm choosing to do green because anything you write in green or blue for this needs to be on, except for the title. Sorry, anything you write in green and blue on this needs to be on every Cornell note for this quarter. But as I continue into this, whatever you write in black is going to change. So let me show you what I mean. So on each Cornell note, I want you to start putting this question first. What questions can we ask to fill this in? And then right below this, what info shared shows off an invention? So this is just an example question that you can use to help you when you're filling in your Cornell notes so that they are precise and accurate. So when I'm figuring out how to fill in connections to the prompt, or when I'm figuring out how to fill in my quote, or when I'm figuring out how to fill in my paraphrase, I can think about what info shared shows off the invention so that I know what to fill in each section. Also, other notes you should add to each section are when we're writing our quote or evidence, we're going to give ourselves space right here and a little comma because we know we are going to have to include a transition. And I'm gonna make notes of those in smaller text. And then we're gonna also have to include some space and then probably a comma and a quote here and a quote at the end, because this is going to be where our in-text citation goes, and we need space here because we're going to make sure that we introduce our quote first. Then I'm going to give myself space here. I'm underlining it because I know that this is where my transition is going to be, and this is going to be my paraphrase evidence from the text. So I know that I'm not putting quotes here. Instead, I'm just going to have an in-text citation at the end. So in smaller, more detailed notes, I'm going to include what goes in here. Our transition goes right there. Again, transition goes right here. And then our author and page number goes here. Okay, so I know I'm writing it in smaller text. This is just for us to keep in mind as we're filling this in. Additionally, what we are going to do is, as we are filling in the summary, we want to make sure that our summaries include the beginning of the text, part of the middle of the text, and the end of the text. And let me show you what I mean. Beginning, middle, and end. Okay, so I'm just gonna real quick show you this summary right now, and then I'm gonna be filling in the rest of this. But this is not necessarily what you have to include on your Cornell note. We're just keeping this in mind for future Cornell notes. So on your Cornell notes, though, what you can put is, what did you learn from the text? So when we're writing a summary, we are providing information that is objective, no opinion whatsoever, just an overview of the text. And a lot of people can fill this in easily if they just ask themselves the question, what did you learn from the text? Or what did I learn from the text? And we can start off our summary. So many of us might say, start off our summary with, I learned that. So the only thing, though, is it needs to be objective, so we can't include I statements, but this is a sentence starter we would naturally use to begin this question. So what I'm going to have you do instead is begin this as if you have I learned that in mind, but you just don't include this in your summary. So I learned that, and now we're going to include what we learned. So here I'm going to go into writing in black, and everything that I'm writing in black is of course going to be on not included on every Cornell note throughout this quarter. It's just included on this Cornell note for inspiration is overrated. So we learned that from the beginning of the text that there are many inventions that people do not know about. Okay, so this sentence is indicating the beginning of the text. So from here to here, well, here, let me choose a different color since I've been telling y'all that we need to have a different color chosen anyway. Okay. So for example, I've been telling you that everything in blue and green needs to be on every Cornell note, so let's make that consistent. So I'm just showing you that this in red is the beginning it kind of goes over everything from the beginning of the text. Now I'm going to write a sentence that pulls from the middle of the text. Most inventions do not succeed. So in our passage, after it talks about how there are many inventions that people do not know about, the middle of the passage is talking about how most inventions do not succeed. So that's why I have that as the middle. And so I'm going to underline this in yellow. So everything in the middle. And then this other piece here. So now I'm going to provide a sentence to articulate what I learned about from the end of the text. So to invent something great there has to be a lot of work put in. So this is articulating everything in the middle of the text. So I'm gonna pick another color real quick to identify this. I'm gonna do a pink right here. Let's do that. That's actually too close to red. Been doing blue. Let's do orange. Yep, orange. Okay. So beginning, I've underlined. Middle, I've underlined, and end, I've underlined to just show why I'm writing the summary this way. So another thing that can help you for this, which I'm just going to start you off. So the rest of these notes, I'm just going to provide insight on details you may need for including in your own Cornell note. Mrs. H is coming into the classroom as this video is going, so if you hear background noise, that's what's going on. So the next piece I'm going to provide is, so this is what you're going to include on your Cornell note to kind of help you get going. So what info is relevant to the essay? So again, my first question that I asked was, what info shared shows off an invention? So this question can help you answer these pieces. And then my additional question I'm asking to help you guys is, what info is relevant to the essay? So that can help us with all parts. The next piece here is another question. So another kind of question we can ask is, what does it take to invent something? So the last question I'm going to have you answer on your own, because I want you to ask a question that you could use that would help you fill in each section. 2 keywords that I'm going to give you for this Cornell note so that you know kind of what the type of keywords we should be asking. So we're not looking at our unfamiliar words. We're looking at words that maybe we didn't know before that were incredibly relevant if they are a very important word. So for example, like not just any unfamiliar word, a word that is specific to better understanding the text importance. So for example, I didn't know that inventors had to look for prior art once they create something. And I found that this was incredibly important for inventors when they are going through that process of getting an invention patented. So that other word, patent, I also think is another keyword from the text. These keywords help aid my comprehension of the text. And prior art is an unfamiliar word, yes, to me, but because of what it implies, I didn't know the inventors had to look for prior art. I didn't really understand what that had meant before reading this text. So now that I know that this is an influential component to this passage. And that's why I'm including it. So your other words should be words that you think are also important, that gain full understanding of the text. That's why when we're writing our paragraphs, you can include those keywords into your writing to better help you. So when we're adding our connection to the prompt, now I'm going to ask myself these questions. So for example, an example with my keywords too, I could have asked myself, what does it take to invent something? Prior art, a patent. There you go, keywords that have helped me answer that. Now, connection to the prompt, what do I add here? I'm gonna go to my questions first, okay? What info is relevant to the essay? Well, in the beginning, it talks about how when you're an inventor, you have the odds stacked against you. So I think that is something that we could connect to which inventions described in this unit has had the biggest impact on humanity. I know that if somebody who invents something really great, like Thomas Edison, when he created the light bulb, I mean, he went through trial and error, so the odds were originally stacked against him. So odds are stacked against you. So this is a connection to here, and I used my questions to help me answer this. Same thing with here. I used my questions to help me answer what goes here. So quote and evidence from the text. If you're like, what evidence could I use? What quote could I use? Well, what info is relevant to the text? What does it take to invent something? what info shared shows off an invention. These are all things that I can include or think about when I'm thinking for my evidence. So I just know for this, I'm going to have my transition word here. And I'm also going to, because we don't have an author, we're going to include that instead of the author's name, we're just going to have inspiration is overrated. This is 442 to 443. So in my body paragraphs, this is what I'm including. And you're going to also include the same here for that, your paraphrase. So we know that we would need a transition word or words here, but I'm just going to write a few words down that I want you to include in your writing so that you know after you write your transition, you also know you need to explain a little bit about what the author shared before directly writing the quote itself. So after I have my transition, so after this, I'm going to write the author shares that. And then, so between my transition to the author shares that, I'm going to provide a little bit of context about my quote. And then I'm going to state my quote, and then this is going to go here. Make sure you are fully taking these Cornell notes seriously for this quarter because we saw how important they were for our essay during last quarter's writing. I am not going to provide you additional supports to the extent that I provided you last quarter. So it's very, very important that you really fill in each section as to the best of your ability throughout this quarter. Thank you for watching this video. Please continue using this video as a reference if you ever get confused about Cornell notes throughout this quarter and you need something to reference to make sure that you are on track with writing well. Thank you.